All right. It looks like I am live, just needed for the stream to buffer here a little bit. I realized last time I did a mentor session, I never really introduced myself and my background, so I'll be sure to remember this go around. My name is James Giglio. I'm the founder of MVP Interactive, and we are an extended reality technology company that creates immersive consumer engagement technology for professional sports brands and large properties. And so I'm pleased to be here today to go through a series of questions for some of our new members here. I've been a part of AO for just under 2 years now, became a mentor on February. So just getting my bearings here. So I'm thrilled to be here. And so we'll just get going here with our questions. So the very first question is coming in from Carrington Crothers. And the question they asked is, when it comes to sales, are there any tips, techniques, or selling systems or steps that help you learn to be better, smoother with it? The business description and background of question is he is a commercial product photographer who helps product-based companies at any stage manage their photography needs for e-commerce, marketing, social media, etc. I feel like I'm very choppy on the initial sales side and want to learn more to make it more fluid to ideally be more successful in the long run. Well, the very first comment I would make is certainly practice makes perfect, right? And so the more repetition and the more you try, the better and more comfortable you'll get. The second comment I'll make is, and you've probably heard this ad nauseum from the group here at AO, is to definitely work with Tom Black more closely on the granular elements of developing a sales process and product, as well as a system that can really help and speak to your business scale and improve. And so I'll just speak to a little bit of a holistic or broad stroke in terms of what that actually means. And this could carry on to the next question as well that we'll get into. So, the first two comments I want to reiterate is good on you on identifying where you need to make improvements, continue to practice, and to certainly work with Tom to really refine your sales process and procedures. So to really dumb sales down to a degree, not saying it's easy, but you can really break it down into three parameters, right? The very first stage in the sales cycle is certainly going to be your prospecting or your appointment, right? The second one is going to be your pitch, your value proposition, your demonstration, or some types of need assessment that you identify with your consumer. And then the third and final is obviously the close, right? All very important. And there's a certain life cycle that your pipeline and your sales funnel will kind of track throughout that engagement. So the very first recommendation I would be is to really specialize scripts or messaging at each stage of your sales cycle. So for the appointment or the sort of hook that you are looking to reach out to people, what you really want to do is really develop a concise message that your outreach entails, that you're reaching out to an individual because you at some degree know that your service or your product can be of value of them. The important thing here is when you're trying to set that appointment or get that initial hook, is that you don't oversell exactly what you do, who you are, who you do it for, and it's a big pat on your back. What you want to do is really respect the individual's time and really really sell the appointment or the time slot that where you and that individual can connect and really talk about what makes you the best photographer for them or to fill their needs, right? And so that's a real important key with that initial first step or that scripting, is to make it short, concise, have a hook, but really sell the appointment in being able to have that face-to-face, video-to-video in the world that we live in, but to really represent yourself, your brand, and your products and services. So now we go into this phase two, which is obviously going to be the pitch or the demo. Now, it's, again, very important here where the stereotype in sales and what, the dirty word of being a salesperson has sort of come to, or a negative connotation, is when individuals really take this time to really sell the pen, right? And that's I'm so great. I do it for these people. I'm the best at doing this, and this is the best photography you'll ever experience before. And as being on the other side of that, you really don't allow the potential client or customer to develop that rapport in what you're trying to sell them, right? And so a way to do that is, as I had mentioned before, is let's focus less about 100% your product and services. You know that you're there for a reason. You were able to book that appointment. You know that they're potentially interested. You know that they need your services. So of course you're going to want to talk about, what makes you great or what makes your service strong. But you really need to get comfortable with following and finding the needs of what your customers' problems or issues are, and where you can solve those issues, right? And so that's where we call a needs assessment in sales. And so we really want to do is ask questions, because while you're asking questions, you're not only fact finding, you're getting all of this valuable information of what their needs are, you're developing a rapport. And in sales, relationship is very important, because generally people buy from who they like and who they know, right? And so without being able to really spend time getting to know your customer on an individual basis, really understanding their needs and how you can create value, you're not really going to get forward with getting into the next um, sales function, which is the close, and that's the goal. We all need to close business and earn revenue and really grow a business that way. And so you just have to really concentrate that second level of the sales cycle on that needs assessment, and really identify by asking questions, excuse me, and really developing a rapport with that individual. Now, the third one is the most important one, in the sense that, we need to close. And essentially, that closing is the mutual commitment that you're going to work together at an agreed price and set parameters of a contract. And the best way for that closing to essentially happen, it's not a magic tagline. It's not a phrase that's going to get them so excited that you just nailed it with the close. What it is going to be able to kind of close the loop on that holistic relationship that you were able to develop by going through the sales funnel, and making sure that you manage the entire sales cycle from start to finish. And by doing that, it's the client actually showed commitment to you to make sure that what you were presenting, what you were saying, was at an agreed time, an agreed place, where you had a proper environment to really sell that particular service. So that's what's called managing the sales cycle, right? Where you're not just sending things blindly. You're not just going to issue a proposal or an invoice without any communication to that individual. You're really going to take the time, explain it to them, get them comfortable. This is not about convincing anyone, right? Sales. This is not used car sales in any way, in terms of that negative connotation. So you don't want to feel that you're convincing anyone. What you want to do is really establish how you are going to create immense value through your products and services. And so really important as a broad stroke. Now, obviously there can be layers. I just wanted to break it down into three basic buckets. But in order for you to get more comfortable, the more you do it. And I couldn't recommend Tom highly enough in terms of having him really take a look at your business and script and sort of help you draft that messaging that you can rehearse, practice, and then essentially go out to market with. And again, my business has done over $10 million in gross revenues throughout our life cycle here. We haven't spent $1 on advertising, and it's been very organic, natural, door-to-door sales, if you will. And so I could tell you, doing it in year one versus doing it in year 7 are immensely different in terms of your comfort, your confidence. But the only way that you're going to break through is by continuing to do it. Now, that's not to say if you are completely hamstrung and you have the real self-awareness that you're really struggling with sales, and that's really not your major skill set, then look to ways to partner with an individual or someone that can handle that in a more professional manner or more confident manner, that it really represents your brand. Again, that may come down the line. If you're a new entrepreneur, you have to wear many hats, and sales is by far the number one hat that you have to wear to a degree. But you fight through it. You continue to rehearse. You continue to practice, and I promise you'll be able to sell and close and kind of work through the pipeline there. So the second question is fairly similar in terms of the needs for the scripting and the sale. So this question comes in from Nancy Lopez. Her question is, what would be great scripts for selling jewelry to retailers? Business description and background of question. I design jewelry for women that connects them with life moments. I'm starting in the jewelry business. I'm new in my city and I don't speak the local language, Dutch. I will approach potential clients in English and I want to make sure I have great scripts to close the sales. I design and make jewelry that cherishes women's deepest emotions. So I know nothing about the jewelry business. I know nothing about the Netherlands or speaking Dutch. But as I had mentioned, scripts are so important for your messaging and how you're able to really connect with your consumer. So I'd imagine, you have some level of information and due diligence on who your potential buyers are, what their needs are, and how you can form that messaging. And if you were able to take, those three phases that I had mentioned earlier, a script for an appointment or the hook, a separate script for maybe a cold call, a third script for your presentation or your demo, and then a fourth one to really cover, objections, whether that's price objection, buying objections, what have you. The best way that you can really form and craft those scripts is to understand who your buyer is and speak to the voice of who that buyer is, right? And so if you're let's see, you described your jewelry as something that memorializes or cherishes women's deepest emotions, right? Play that into your scripts, right? If you're going to retailers that are focusing on the woman market, put some messaging around that. Identify through some of your research what some of the challenges were, and talk about how you can potentially solve those issues, or what your value proposition to other jewelers and why it's so important. So over some time, again, this would take a little bit of more hands-on work with someone that can understand and learn about your business a little bit more, and then draft exactly what those scripts say. But if you take the approach of who your marketplace is, who your buyer is, and then talk about each phase of the sales cycle, that'll really help you stay focused as to what the feel of the script should be. All right, so the next one, this is a doozy. This is a big one, and we could probably spend hours talking about this. So the name of the submitter is Dan Bitter, and the question he asked is, how can I come to a new equity agreement with my partner while addressing his concern? Business description and background of question. I initially started as a coder in our tech startup, but my role has evolved to CTO. My equity share hasn't yet changed from the 3% I initially agreed to. We're using a CFO services firm until we find someone to take on the role for equity. My CEO, Todd, is hesitant to redefine the equity until we finish a business plan, because he wants a CFO-minded person to say, yes, that equity split makes sense, yes or no. It does not make sense, and here's why. We have a large bill coming due June 1st, which I'll need a personal loan for. I am our only funding source for now, and I've been fine paying the bills as they come, but I feel my current 3% equity isn't enough to justify long-term debt. We've talked about 20, 25% equity as a proper amount, which satisfies me, but time is growing short and I don't know how to have this conversation. Todd's concern is overpromising equity amounts. In his previous first startup, he gave 20% each to 3 people without keeping track of the total, and wouldn't have had much left for himself or investors. His idea is that equity shares are final, while my idea is that they can proportionately decrease current equity shares to offer equity to new partners. He's open to adopting a new model for addressing equity, but he's not sure how things are done and is erring on the safe side. There's a lot here, and this is very, very complicated, and I will do my best to provide some high level of advice to you, but if you want to have a one-on-one call with myself or Sean or anyone else that has had to organize a cap table or issue equity to their business partners, I would definitely recommend that. But there's really a lot to unpack here. And, you know, the one thing that a couple of things jump out at me. Number one is that your partner is erring on the safe side. Everything that you had said that in your description here, to me, doesn't sound safe. What it seems is unexperienced or not knowledge on how things actually work. And so there's a level of education on your entire team that needs to happen. And again, a recommendation, and this could be your CFO services firm, but ideally it would be a business attorney that could help you construct your corporate governance documentation, your operating agreement, your cap table, equity distribution, et cetera, et cetera. So, but the task at hand is this. It sounds like you're really struggling with how to present your displeasure based on your responsibilities with your equity stake. You're 100% right that this was a fluid conversation and a fluid process that can be changed and sort of managed as the company grows. But more importantly, if you're paying the bills, you're developing the product, how in the world are you only at 3% at this point? I'm making assumptions only based on what you had given. Now, I know that there's probably layers here, but from a roles and responsibilities stage state at this stage of a company, you guys really need to clearly define your roles and responsibilities and the value that those bring to the business. And that'll help strengthen your argument as to why you deserve more equity. And everything that I'm reading here, it sounds, at least at face value, you absolutely do deserve to increase your equity partnership here. Now, that's, you know, a light approach on how you could certainly present that to your partner. But in order to legitimize everything that's discussed, you know, you need to break these roles and responsibilities down. If you need a third party, I strongly recommend an attorney versus a CFO services firm. They will have some knowledge and experience in this, but in order to really legalize or document, memorialize everything that you guys are discussing into a corporate governance, you will need to form an operating agreement, right? And so within that operating agreement, your roles will be clearly defined as to whether the fiduciary responsibilities to the company, what your day-to-day responsibilities are, specific tasks and or agendas for future growth. And so that is going to be one of the single most important pieces of paper where you'll be able to even establish a board, because if you're just two partners, I don't know if there's multiple partners, there's going to be voting situations and voting rights that you need to come to an agreement with. You'll need another third party to maybe even be a coin flip decision maker in terms of deadlocks, right? And so there's a lot of nuance into what this operating agreement will entail, but it is very important to legitimize and break down what you agree to. Now, further, as in terms of the equity, of course it's fluid, right? If you're at a tech company and you're looking to eventually raise money to investors to sell equity, you're going to have to be prepared for some dilution, right? Now, it sounds like your CEO still may be a little inexperienced in knowing what your company's pre-valuation dollar amount is, what your post-investment valuation is, and then from there you'll be able to allocate a bundle of shares that you can disperse to your equity, to your partners as well as your investors. Now, again, I know I'm probably, speaking Greek, to you at this point or this stage in your process here, but it's very important that you do speak to someone that has experience here that can guide you into what actual steps that are needed, because quite frankly, this is something where friends who are founders become foes very quickly. So you can't sleep on this. And I would recommend that you had said you have a bill coming up, you're making those payments, time is running short. You need to get all of your sort of demands, if you will, your roles and responsibilities in front of these individuals and state your claim, so to speak. But it won't be legitimized officially until you're able to, memorialize that in an operating agreement. And so there has to be clear stipulations in that. So then the other thing that struck me was, he had a previous startup that he didn't know how to properly distribute the shares or make adjustments. Again, I don't want to make any assumptions on what his experience was or what any liquidity event that he may or may not have experienced that caused this issue. But right now, there's a couple of online equity management platforms that will give founders the ability to redistribute shares based on investments, new employees. You can also identify what type of class of shares there are. Common stock, preferred stock, more simply A shares and B shares that may carry certain validity when it comes to an acquisition or a liquidity event. But the platform that I personally use is called Carta, C-A-R-T-A. It's a few $1,000s for the year, but in terms of cap tables, these are very, very confusing documents, and it's beyond a spreadsheet because, as I mentioned, there's valuations, there's bulk amount of shares, there's price per share, there's individuals, and everything has to net out at 100%. And so what this platform allows for is a real dynamic way, and they give you a real financial advisor to kind of help you work through that structure. But once it's live on the platform, you're able to, like I mentioned, advanced shares, memorialized certificates, which is really fun and neat. So when you onboard new employees, if they vest in some shares, you can send them a document that can, it looks like an old-fashioned stock certificate. And so it's a really cool platform called Carta. So you guys have a lot to figure out, and I certainly suggest that you do this sooner than later. But these handshake equity conversations or back of the napkin agreements, I would strongly advise, and I say this from experience. I've kind of lived this nightmare before. Gratefully, I'm probably going to live some other nightmare in terms of getting to that point where we are experience a positive liquidity event or an acquisition where now we have to get back into that cap table and make sure numbers align and what have you. But that platform Carta, really eases the sort of manpower that's needed. But again, reach out to me directly, James at mvp-interactive.com. Obviously, you can find folks here on the portal. I know Sean has some real experience here, Dan Abate as well. So definitely lean on this group and just be confident when you go into that meeting. You're going to sound like you know what you're talking about. You're going to feel like you know what you're talking about. And more importantly, you're going to get what you want because you're going to go in there with a real concise representation of you and what you deserve. So good luck to you. And I really do hope that we can speak in more detail there. All right, so the next question is coming in from Brad Coleman. The question that Brad had asked is, do you think it is important to have a face behind the brand? Business description and background. Hello, I own a luxury e-commerce brand and I want to know if it is important to you to have a face behind the brand, meaning behind the scene videos, introduction, etc. so your customers know who they're buying from. I don't plan on staying anonymous, but right now I'm still small and I don't have a lot to show behind the scenes that I want to show. Thank you. The elevator pitches. My name is Brad. I'm the founder of Carbon Thread Designs, a luxury auto sport apparel fashion brand that creates and designs apparel for the auto enthusiast while incorporating carbon fiber into our designs. Sounds great. I'll have to check out your site and look at your shirts there. But again, I don't have too much experience when it comes to a personal brand representation of what my product is, but I can say as a founder, you are 100% the face of the business, and people will eventually, your buyers will want to know who that individual is. Now, if what you're asking is how much should you be prominently displayed on all of your advertising and your videos and your work product, I wouldn't say it's necessarily too important at this stage. But if you do have a website and there's an about us, a bio showcasing who you are, I had said this earlier, when it comes to sale, people like to buy who they know and who they like, right? And so if you do add some personality to your brand and it represents you outwardly, That's great, and that's fine, and it could be a nice balance. It doesn't mean that you're sprawled across a Lamborghini on social media and every photo, you're balling in Las Vegas. Quite frankly, that may work against you. It likely will, in terms of your legitimacy. So you don't have to be 100% the model, but I think if you are the spokesperson, the founder, and the CEO, people really want to get to know who that individual is. They want to know your story. Why do you have what from your past brought you here, in terms of developing this product? And so, if that is a bio on your website or maybe a message from you, in terms of what your videos look like, I think that's completely fine. I do appreciate your humility. Again, in the retail and I'd imagine luxury sport apparel, there's a lot of ego involved and a lot of social media stunting. So I can appreciate your approach here. But as you grow, you may become more prominent there. And then eventually, if you're just completely uncomfortable with being that sort of out there face, in terms of modeling, obviously you can get an influencer to some degree. But I do think it is important that as a founder, you have the approach that you are 100% the face of the company, you're the voice of the company, and you are. I think you just need to look at what you're most comfortable with and provide the world a little intro into who you are and why you developed this product. I think that can go a long way. And as your business grows, your personal brand will grow, and then you'll have a little bit more flexibility in how you sort of present yourself that way. All right. So the next question comes from Ashley Letourneau. Question she had asked: how should I connect with home builders so I don't come off as spammy? Business description is: I own a residential and commercial cleaning company. Over the last year, I've been developing a master list of home builders and their construction new build locations in the Ottawa area. I want to start reaching out to them, offering them my services, and secure my spot on their bid list. Great. Of course, no one wants to be spammed. No one wants to be over inundated with solicitations, and there is a fine balance. But I think that there's enough platforms out there that really will mitigate that concern for you. If you're looking to do a email campaign or some outreach that you have the contact information and you want to send marketing information, there are CRM platforms like HubSpot that can automate your messaging. You could schedule out exactly when those marketing flyers go out, when your emails are distributed. You can sequence your own follow-ups, and you can do that weeks in advance, so that you can schedule the appropriate follow-up times, your outreaches, and then kind of work through the sales cycle there. The other element here is, and I don't know too much about your business, but if you are a cleaning service, you're trying to connect with these home builders, I really like the idea of the personal touch and being able to really walk into a location or to an office. I know there's COVID concerns, but in traditional times, being able to represent yourself and your company in person to the receptionist or someone there at the office, dropping off information, I think can still create value. And it's more of a grassroots methodology, but it's certainly one that, unless you're showing up every day, twice a day, you're going to know if you start feeling spammy or not. And the other thing I like about your business in terms of being able to create really strong outreach is to get creative. Are you in a position that you can maybe send a little tchotchke in the mail, like say white gloves or something, and say, hey, we provide the best white glove service for home cleaning, and have your business card or some type of creative hook that you don't have to do twice a week. It's once a month. It's probably most likely something like that you'll probably just do once, and follow up with a phone call or an email. But get real creative and smart with what you're actually doing. And then the third suggestion I would make is, home builders work with a whole host of vendors and contractors and channel partners. Look to start solicit those folks too. And so maybe it's the lumber company, or maybe it's the contractor, the carpenter that is, being hired by the home builder. So you can, hit the home builder while you're kind of working through their channel partners. And the more your name comes up and say, hey, this person reached out to me and they're really interested, and like, hey, I heard from that person, it feels very organic and it represents you really well because you're showing the hustle, you believe in what you're doing, and you're not just bothering one person. You're kind of going through that tree of vendors that you're just touching them individually, and then in totality you're kind of able to increase your brand there. So just a couple quick suggestions there, and I hope that helps. Next question comes in from AJ Couts. AJ says, how to begin training my first hire. Hey, Sean and mentors, first question here for me. I'm about 8 months into my entrepreneurial journey, and I'm quickly learning that I don't have the time or bandwidth to accomplish everything I sell. My business is a growth agency that includes web development, and I've had skilled friends working on a project-by-project basis for the last 6 months. We're financially at the point to support hiring him part-time, and I am excited to be training him to do many of the low value tasks that are currently on my plate. But I'm also nervous about this, as I know that many first hires don't work out well. I've also seen how training processes can make or break someone who would otherwise be a good team member. I'd really appreciate input on what you've learned relating to this topic. Thanks in advance. All right, first thing, AJ, congratulations on your first employee. That's very exciting, and we're all very proud of you that you've been able to build your business enough that you have revenue to employ someone. Fascinating, and so good on you. I joke with hiring. We all still learn. There's a lot of things that you could be the best recruiter in the world. You really can't 100% identify someone and how they're going to work out with a crystal ball. But there's this saying in baseball that 3 out of 10 to get you in the Hall of Fame. I feel like hiring is very similar in terms of what those ratios look like. But I think you're in a unique position right now because you have been working with this person. So the first question I would ask yourself is, from a cultural perspective, how does he fit? What is his work performance like? Does he accomplish and get his job done on time and of good quality and of a standard of excellence? Do you guys get along? Do you have a good relationship in terms of how you as his boss or superior is able to delegate to him and how he handles that? So I think you have some real seasoned time frame behind that even though he's been freelance, you really kind of know, at least you should know with some level of confidence of who he is as a worker or an employee. So I would, from your first step, kind of take it the cultural side of it is how he is as a person, what his perspective looks like. And, from there, there's a host of personality skills or interview questions that the group can share with you that can help sort of identify maybe some red flags that you haven't thought of. But I would lean on, I think that there's a resource guide in the portal that can help you with interview questions. So you may want to consider carving out a couple of those questions, just present and interview him to feel him out on some aspects that you may not be aware of. And so if you feel that you have a good cultural fit, chances are there's not going to be much that changes in him being onboarded as a part-time or full-time employee. Now, the other thing that you can really, and I strongly advise this, and this is something that Dan Abade, who is also a mentor, has helped me with, as there's been some fluctuation in my staff, is to create a very detailed job description and scorecard. And so what that means is essentially documenting all of your processes, your procedures in terms of your company values, who you demand and expect to sort of believe in the company culture, and then breaking down their specific jobs requirements and job description, very detailed and exact pinpoints as to how they can perform those tasks. And then develop a column that each week you can sit with that individual and say, okay, let's take a look at last week. What have we done here? And it could be 10 things, it could be 5 things, it could be 100 things, but you get into that cadence where it's like you're flowing, that you're making sure that each of the job descriptions and responsibilities are being handled appropriately. And so I think that'll take a lot of worry away from you, because it is procedurized, and so it'll, if you get it done early enough, it'll become just the way it is, and it's not something that you have to shoehorn in after the fact. I think your worries really come from, working with somebody over a long period of time, and then all of a sudden you flip the switch, and everything changes, and there's new policy, there's new procedure. Yeah, I think that does expose most of us to some culture shock, and some people no longer feeling committed to working in a new fashion. But if you get ahead of it early enough, and you really document it, and you make it as a part of your standard operating practice, I don't think that there's going to be a problem. But I'll make assumptions here, but it sounds like you're going to be okay. You had complimented his work. Just think about how you guys work together, and then take it to that real sort of procedural standpoint, and develop that job description and scorecard, that, and get it done early, do it immediately, and then you're not going to have a problem long term. All right, the next question is from Roselli. How do you get out of your own way to reach your goals in business? I have a small accounting firm. I keep sabotaging myself and want to be intentional to stop the self-sabotage. All right. This is a little vague, but I hear you. I think founders' anxiety and sort of mindset can be a major detriment to your success. And so I'll try to approach it from a mindset perspective, in that you have to identify what exactly does it mean that you're self-sabotaging. Is it you're not able to delegate responsibilities because you're a micromanager, and you end up getting into conflict with people, and then you can't work that way? Is there something that your mindset is defeatist, in that you don't think that you're able to accomplish things the way that you want? Are you not thinking big enough? Really focus in on where your mindset is. And one of the practices that I've gotten much better at is you really have to buy into a mindset. And I know that this is something that Sean talks about often, and preaches about often, but you have to tell yourself that good things happen. You are capable of doing this. Whatever affirmation that you need to tell yourself on a daily basis, think bigger, right? It's that power of attraction, and knowing that you're able to kind of get through these sort of micro moments of having a bad day, or whatever the self-sabotage is. Get beyond that through mindset. And the second thing is self-awareness. Now, a lot of people struggle with this. I had mentioned, like, what is it about your day-to-day activity that you're sabotaging? Are you unfocused? You start your day late and you can't complete your task? Have a real defined self-awareness checklist. And we all have issues. No one's perfect, right? And everyone has their skills, and everyone has their drawbacks. And so, but the self-awareness piece, and being able to document, okay, here's what I'm good at, what I'm great at, here's where I struggle, and then think about where we can assist that struggle, whether that's a mentoring group, whether that's an employee. I know nothing about your business outside that it's small, but I'd imagine you'll have some resources. I know you could be early, but this is why you're here. So you're around very trained and well capable people that can kind of get you through this. But I hope that provided enough round response to a fairly vague description. But I hear you, and just work on that mindset, and identify your strengths and weaknesses, and I promise that the self-sabotaging elements of whatever that may be will be identified, and then you'll have a clearer path on how to get through that. So good luck with everything there. And that was my final question, guys. So I appreciate the questions, and I could, Dan, I really want to speak to you, or AJ, excuse me, AJ, on the cap table and the equity piece. So reach out, anyone. You have a live feed here, so I'm proud to be a mentor, and I wish you guys all great luck and have an awesome weekend, and we'll see you soon. All right, see you.